Oh, well, we're a couple of months now into the U.S. Venezuela saga, as I like to call it. And for those of you who don't remember, the U.S. basically said, "Screw the president that you guys elected. We're going to recognize Guaido, this other person, the National Assembly president, as the official president." And Maduro, the actual president of Venezuela, was like, "All right, well, you know what? We're done with relations with the U.S. You guys have to get all your officials out of here in 3 days." And ever since then, it's just been kind of a constant thing of the U.S. backing the quote unquote interim president and Maduro refusing to step down. So this has been kind of divisive because a lot of Trump supporters I've seen are people that like his domestic stuff, which, you know, God help us that we actually have people that believe that stuff is good. But a lot of them, from what I've seen, are not that big on this. Like basically, I'd say 60% is whatever because they're just here for the domestic stuff. And there's like a 30%, 20%, they're like, yeah, this is stupid. Um, and it always pleases me when you can get that group of rationale people who kind of did have two poor options in the last presidential election to say, "Hey, look, I'm not going to subscribe to this," because it shows they're not entirely convinced that you must always, go along with whatever the president is doing. What I thought was most comedic is that I've actually had several people who are from foreign, other countries besides the U.S. that have tried to push back at me over my position. My position is the U.S. needs to stay out of it, and if Venezuela, wants to change their own leader, let them. Uh, but the only reason we're even concerned is because we have the position of, oh, you guys voted for someone. Well, you voted wrong, so now we have to tell you who you can and can't have as your president. And I tried to explain this would be the equivalent of me being president of, I don't know, Zonia, and proclaiming that Zonia will recognize uh, Hillary as the interim president, and then Trump as the unofficial one, and as it relates to the U.S. Like people would lose their minds. People would say, "How dare this foreign, head of state proclaim that our elections were not legitimate?" And for whatever reason, that line of thought doesn't translate to a lot of these individuals. They kind of have this thing of, well, Maduro's bad, and if you support not throwing him out because he was an elected leader, uh, you're the villain. You're part of the problem. Blah 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 blah. I even had one person come in here and write like 2 or 3 paragraphs telling me about how screwed up I was. It was such, they did it really quickly, almost like they were just copying and pasting that stuff. Like they didn't actually address anything I specifically said. But they came in here and they told me how bad it was that I was not backing the coup. And they tell me, oh, I'm from Brazil, yada yada yada. And I said, well, look, it's the same thing. If I came over to Brazil and I'm the head of state of whatever country and tell you the person you guys voted for is not legitimate, and I, as a foreign head of state, can now determine who your leader is, you should get pissed. You should say, hey, you can't screw with my democracy like that. Especially when you have something to lose, with this oil. But like I said, we don't live in an era where people think logically about a lot of things, and so you end up getting stuck with this kind of thought because, like I said before, whenever the U.S. wants to depict some country as being the adversary, they do the same thing. They tell you the people who are from there, are so nice and honorable, and they usually are because the people don't control their head of state. And they also tell you that the current head of state is so evil and they're destroying everything, and all this Red Scare nonsense. I'm saying to JMO, who I'm sorry if you were coming back for some romantic stuff, but I don't plan on having any of that for this stream. I might say something about it if you leave a comment in relation to it, but just giving you the heads up. So that's I'm sure you enjoyed if you stuck around to the end of that last stream, that surprise ending, JMO, with the that clip. I don't know if you liked it or not. We have to find out. Get your stamp of approval on that. But going back to what I was saying, you have a lot of people who, in the interim of being online, actually think if I just write this stuff, it's going to suddenly change how people feel. If I go in enough chat rooms, I guess I have a harder time accepting a position if it comes from someone that is not a regular on the channel, because a lot of times people like to jump from one stream to another one, looking up a title, and then mess with the people who are saying something. So it always seems like it could just kind of be probably, someone playing around. But it's it's an unfortunate thing because I try to explain that whenever you have a circumstance where the people don't want to accept each other, and just kind of say this person can have their position, I'll have mine. It turns into it doesn't make for good dialogue. Spondora says, I don't believe you should directly instigate any regime change in any other country. That being said, the government of Venezuela is super corrupt. So if the people there go for a regime change, then there's nothing wrong with us cheering them on. No, no, no. My position isn't Maduro must stay in power no matter what. It's the fact that all of this pressure is being applied by people who have nothing to do with Venezuela other than a financial interest. So if the people say, "Hey, look, we're sick of Maduro's, crusty behind," and they choose to throw him out, hey, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But it has to be the people who do it, not the U.S. Not any of these other countries. I think Israel is also part of this group that supports, screwing with them too. I know Russia does, and that was one of the reasons people were saying that RussiaGate was a bunch of crap. But it shows you that we're not. I'm not supporting that government, just the people being the ones who get rid of it. If that position makes sense, Pandora. Just checking. But like I said, people oftentimes talk about their disdain for Trump, and it sucks because a lot of cabinet officials have influences that are oftentimes not reported by the media or not focused on by commentators. And they seem to think that like the president just sits in the White House by themselves and talk to anybody, doesn't have any individual speaking to them. It's like, no, you have a terrible national security advisor, uh, Bolton, who admitted wanting wars, wanting regime change in North Korea and Iran, these two countries that, for the most part, don't do anything to us except talk smack. And no one says, hey, what the hell is wrong with you? We're already bombing 7 different countries. Why do we need 2 more, in addition to Venezuela? So it's, those kind of people fly under the radar because they're not in a cabinet position. So they get to go show up and spew all their venom about what you want to do to the world, and they don't have to worry about getting called out for it ever. Let me see. Did I say hello to Mark already? I think I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I was on my tangent about how we have this story shows how you can have all these different people involved with Trump's positions abroad, and then like none of them other than him get any flack ever. Because I watch the Liberty Report with Ron Paul. So that was the Republican congressman that ran for president twice. And he, even if I don't like a lot of his views on domestic issues, which is par for the course because he still identifies as a conservative, whenever he talks about any of the wars we're involved in or regime change, just anything relating to the U.S. internationally, I find myself agreeing with him. So it's a nice thing. And it depends on the way in which that's done because it's it's one of those complicated questions. It's sort of like if I said, how do I position this? I'd probably be okay with giving, because I do like the idea of universal basic income, which theoretically could serve for that same purpose. But I don't like the idea of giving people who didn't experience something uh, cash for what someone else experienced, if that makes sense. But I do believe that there should be some form of, and this is difficult. It came in here one of those earth shattering questions. Splendora says the United States does have an interest in what's happening in South America because of all the caravans over which, oh my God, please don't come in here talking about illegal immigration, man. If I hear, I'm so every time I turn on the TV, whether it's Fox or CNN or any of these other networks, that's the only thing they ever talk about. MS-13, Kate Steinle, like God, man, you almost think that there's nothing else going on. So, holy hell. So that topic is just, it really is like, remember TYT used to have a policy where before Trump ran for president, they would block out his face. Like, you know how on TV, if someone puts up like the middle finger or they're naked, they blur it out. They would blur out his face for years. Just every time they do a story about him, anytime they showed footage, they'd have his face blurred out. I literally want to have me saying the phrase illegal immigration or just the word immigration just blurred out and all the different topics associated because I'm just sick of it. Like, you know, it's been one of those things where just it's gotten so much focus that literally everything around it has been consumed. Um, so I oftentimes try to find ways to not end up discussing it because other stuff is happening too, and people like to pretend that you can talk about this one thing over and over again for 3 or 4 years, and people are going to forget about all the other stuff. Again, I'm not saying that it has no relevance to anything. I'm simply stating that it's frustrating when you go and you watch any of these cable networks because you already know they're paid to not discuss the wars by Boeing and all these other defense contractors. So they'll look for domestic issues like that to pump your TV with all day. And then if you give a position on it that people don't like, they lose their minds. And I actually noticed that that's probably the most contentious one. Like any social issue, I'm done discussing basically. Like I used to talk about abortion and gay marriage, all this other stuff. Like, man, you know what? Every time you bring that stuff up and you say something somebody doesn't like, they lose their mind. So just screw it. And it'll be really weird because, like I said before, um, whenever you get into a pattern of espousing the same view over and over again, and knowing that a good chunk of the people who come in there also are backing that same position, it gets really weird when that one person you've never seen in your comment section before is like, "How dare you not support the right to life? You're going to hell." Just it's like, where did you come from? Who directed you here? Why are you here, basically? So that's the central issue with that. Um, the way this probably ends is we're going to bomb there and be involved in another ridiculous overseas conflict. And unfortunately, the ones that have been started in the early 2000s, like Afghanistan and Iraq, seem to just go on forever. So you can kind of speculate that this is probably going to stay on for a while. What I mean by that is a couple of decades. See, the way these conflicts always start up, right, is, oh, okay, we just need this to happen and then we'll be done. Then they find another reason to stay over there. This is exactly what's happened with Syria. Oh, we're pulling out, and then months later, oh no, we're staying in, and then I complain about it, and I get told I have Trump derangement syndrome when before he flipped, I was supporting him getting out of there. So it's you can't win when you are a commentator on a lot of this stuff because the people who back these people to a T like to suspend all forms of logic to continue supporting that person. And this comes at a cost of thinking that everyone who says something that is not a compliment toward that politician is trying to crap all over him. And it sucks because it means that you can't have a critical discussion about any of this stuff. Uh, like I told you before, whenever I would talk about Trump doing something right, one of his supporters would like my comment on Twitter. They would retweet all this stuff. But the second you say anything that is in the negative towards something that is happening now, just gone just like that. Accused of being a Democrat, accused of being weak on whatever topic is being proposed. It's like it's weak to show restraint, but it's not weak to get to be a crybaby that the guy you wanted to win the election didn't win. Okay. Mark says, could this be an attempt to set up a military base in Venezuela? I think it's an attempt to get some oil. I think it's an attempt to stay over there for a long time. It's all being masked in this election cycle because their argument keeps being, oh, he's a bad guy, when they've done the same thing in Iran, where it's just to get oil. And I kept, one of the I was thinking of doing a stream, and it was going to be called "Why Does Everybody Think They're an Expert on Politics?" Where I've had people who I've sat back and said, you can look at you forget Trump, right? Look at the U.S. government and what they did in Iran with, trying to get some oil and then messing with Mohammad Mossadegh, the democratically elected leader who wouldn't give them whatever they wanted. And you can cite these things as examples of where the government will hide behind how evil the government of somewhere else is to mess with the country's oil. And I cite this as an example to one of these regime change supporters, and they didn't want to hear it. I said, well, look, there is a context involving all of this stuff that should really serve as the guidepost for why you don't believe a lot of the crap that they're telling you now. Just like I gave the example of how when Trump announced he was going to pull out of Syria, there was a person on Twitter who got mad at me. They actually I think have Trump derangements because if you go on their page, you can't do anything, right? I was like, damn, you make me seem like one of his supporters, and I'm the closest thing from it. But I was saying I support getting out of this war because I don't care who does it. And then this broad response is like, even the generals and the experts are saying that he should stay over. And I'm like, but do you realize that literally every single time in U.S. history, generals and sergeants and all of these people that are affiliated with the military wanted more war? So Matt is saying the defense secretary that Trump first had saying I want to stay over there was no surprise. But also, if you look at any conflict we've ever been in, whether we won it or lost it, most often we've lost it. It's always been someone who's in the army or the military saying, let's pump it up. It was what happened with the Civil War, what happened with Vietnam, what happened with the Gulf War, what happened with Iraq, with Afghanistan, with Syria, with Somalia, with Pakistan, with Yemen, Libya, just anywhere you can think of. It's always a general saying, let's continue staying over here year after year. We have a new mission. What the hell? These people over here doing this. We must stop them. All of this fear-mongering crap to get you to think that if we don't get them over there, they're going to come over here when we're the ones who messed with them to begin with. Okay, so Splendor Gaming says, I also believe we shouldn't have entered Syria, Libya, or Iraq. We have no business being the world police. Yeah, and like I said, the problem is because Americans are so non-concerned with anything that doesn't involve them being bombed. They don't care that their tax dollars are being used to fund conflicts that are never ending. It's like people don't get if you've been a person who's worked since 2001, you've literally spent almost 20 years paying for a war that they still can't tell you when it's going to be over. And they don't care. So they're going to pay for this regime change. They're going to say to themselves, oh, it doesn't matter. Trump is going to have us out there in a few months. And then it lasts for his last 2 to 6 years, depending on if he gets reelected or not. And then after he gets out of office, whoever follows behind him keeps it going as well and just continues like that. Every time these start, the people who spearhead them say, we have a plan, we have an idea of how we're going to do this. And then it doesn't happen. And we just end up getting stuck there for, some ungodly amount of time. So people don't want to believe what is reality. That a lot of stuff just doesn't change because the people aren't putting pressure to get it to change. They know that if they keep this out of sight and out of mind, a lot of people are not going to look into the finer details of this conflict. So you end up getting stuck with individuals who find themselves being the piggy bank for stuff they don't even know about. Okay, Splendor says, I actually agreed with because we were attacked and more than 3,000 people. We should have left that nation too. Okay, but here's my thing. I'm not talking about never ever going overseas for anything. So if you get attacked, whatever, but we're talking about literally being there with no reason now. Like we were told at one point that they were training the Afghan citizen soldiers or citizens or whatever the hell to be able to compete with the invading forces there as well. So if it takes 18 years to train these people and we still have to train them even after that, couldn't you admit that that intervention has been a failure if we're stuck there and still haven't completed that purpose, or if it's taken that long to do it? Mark, it's entirely for the defense contractors. They're all these different conflicts are for money. Like I said before, they have these soldiers who sign up filled with their heads with all this patriot crap about dying for your country and its freedoms and blah 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 blah. Get blown to pieces, and the defense contractors make coins for every time those tanks and bullets and various weapons are used. So the more conflicts there are, the more in high demand their technology is, and the more money they make. And so one of the things they do is to give members of Congress and I guess various presidents at this point coins to keep their stuff going. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. Told you, man, whenever you look at a situation and you say this sucks, why haven't we changed it? Usually has to do with money. And it's really funny because I tried to explain to people before that I don't like to bring up the financial stuff without giving the disclosure that they do it with both parties, where they pay Democrats and Republicans cash to keep any of these conflicts going, or a majority of them going. And that's why you haven't seen any end in the last couple of years. I think Yemen was the latest one in 2015, and then we've just had 4 straight years of 7 wars, and none of them you don't hear. Think about it, you haven't heard anything about Pakistan. You haven't heard anything about getting out of Libya or Iraq. All you've heard, actually, you did hear about Iraq. I take that back. You heard about the indefinite occupation that we're going to have over there because I covered it. Okay, Ryan, who I've never seen before, says Venezuela will be to the U.S. what Libya has been to Europe. I think that is part of the goal. Maybe I'm still supporting the position that we're over there just to get oil, and that they're going to use this election, like this quote unquote rigged election, to uh, have a reason to initially go over there, and then as with each passing year, they're going to say, "Oh no, we're over there because something else," and then they're going to just keep updating us with something else still isn't finished and blah blah. Just keep it going. But I think that's how we initially get hooked, and then until they stay over there. Pandora says, I agree with you. I was just stating that the only war I agree with was Afghanistan. Even that was conditional. We don't belong there anymore. I don't think we never should have entered Korea or Vietnam. My thing is, I was trying to say, Pandora, is that a lot of times hindsight is what makes me a lot less critical of stuff. Just like, let's pretend Iraq, or rather, let's pretend Afghanistan and Iraq, right? Both ended after, let's say, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years. I wouldn't be complaining about them today. I wouldn't be, you know, saying that the generals who told Bush to stay over there and that we're on our way to victory and the surge is great and all this crap, uh, were idiots because they would have effectively started something and ended it. But that's not the case anymore. You get to start a conflict, you get to have it drowned out by talks of domestic issues on the networks day after day after day, and then you come back to Congress every year to tell us, oh no, we still need more troops and we still need more defense spending and we still need all this crap that is just going to paying for defense contractors so that they can pay the politicians who vote to keep the stuff going. Yeah, Mark. Going back to with your last comment, I'm sure I don't know if you're familiar with Citizens United, but it's like the cornerstone of why people say that the government is run by billionaires and millionaires, where they give them, they made it, it that basically it was a ruling that, well, not basically, it was a ruling that free speech is equal to the amount of money that you give someone. That if I can't give my senator $1 million, that is not in line with my free speech. Mark says it's sad that people pay attention to irrelevant things rather than innocent Syrians being dying in the crossfire of war. Same thing with Yemen, where I've had people like actually tell me, why do you care about this? Why are you so concerned with somewhere you don't live? I said because this could easily have been us if things went a different way. If we let's say lost World War II. Um, it's like you guys don't get that the U.S. hasn't always been on top, and it may not always be on top. So why would I express a sort of nonchalant and in some cases disdain for people who've done nothing to me? And these irrelevant things are propped up by the media. Just like right now, I'm looking on my TV and it says AG Barr says he could release redacted Mueller report by mid-April. They should have just ran that as a news headline for like 2 minutes and then start talking about something else. But like I said, these networks are able to get away with being lazy and only speaking about one story all day. They're going to talk about this Barr stuff and this Mueller crap for the next 2 or 3 weeks straight, and you'll get maybe a passing brief mention of any of our engagements overseas. But it doesn't look like anybody in here actually supports the, regime change. Can we get a person to come in and say what their official stance is? Splendora doesn't support it. I don't think Mark supports it. I don't know for sure. He might be have one foot in both camps. I see JMO left. He was like, "Yeah, I'm done with that." I'm not gonna listen to that unpatriotic rhetoric. How dare you question your government's interventions? That's terrible. What sort of non we call it non caring about the executive branch's feeling person are you? He got very offended. Take on conspiracy theories. If they have proof or if they have something that actually seems legitimate, I don't have a problem with it. Like, I oftentimes deride the JFK assassination conspiracy theorist just because I get tired of them talking more about that than his actual record in office. Like they've turned that into its own little thing. And some of the theories they have just weird me out. Let's see. Like I almost think they're messing with people online when they write some of this stuff. Libya is a good example of why we shouldn't start wars all the time. Muammar Gaddafi, I should say Gaddafi. I always have trouble with his first name. Was a bad person, a tyrant, but he was a stabilizing force in the country. In the void he left, Libya now has slave markets openly on the streets. Also, the way he died was pretty messed up. I agree, and that's why I could have sworn didn't Rubio put up a picture on Twitter of Gaddafi like bloodied face or something? It was really weird. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're the senior senator from Florida, and you're so dense as to what people would even want to see online that you're showing us a picture of someone's bloody face. Load says U.S. needs to be stopped from destroying another country. Regime change at all costs is probably the biggest reason I think we need to beat Trump in 2020. If Trump remains in office, it's almost certain we'll invade Venezuela. Uh, I'm not discounting the fact of that or the reality of that. I'm just saying that because of how early we are into this year, like we're only like a quarter into it. I'm kind of convinced that even if he doesn't, so like even if he loses that election, right, he still could go in there between the rest of this year and all of next year. You get what I'm saying? That I get the urgency of, like how this factors into not wanting him to invade, but because there's so much time still left in this potential, if he wins first term of his, uh, it's like, oh my god, we can't win, or we have to, like, I don't know what else to do. So it's too bad that Mueller stuff didn't turn out to be anything. Then you could actually, well, even then, if you got him out, Pence would probably just do the same thing anyway. Let's see. Splendor says Muammar Gaddafi was anal. Oh my God, raped to death. Not familiar with the photo you mentioned. Let me see if I can find it. I have to look for it. That's a running theme where if I'm doing something and then somebody is like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about," and of course I'm not logged into Twitter, so I have to log back in. Give me a second. It's on Rubio's page. The wonderful senior senator from Texas, from Texas, from Florida. For whatever reason, it's not coming up. I'll show you a picture I'm talking about. That was weird. Everybody was losing their minds. Like, what is wrong with you? He must be. And oh, the other problem is that it might take a little bit longer to find this because he tweets so much, which should kind of tell you that they don't actually have anything to do with it. Whatever. Jesus. If you see this little bar and how skinny it's getting, and we're only at like the 20th, that should tell you something. I remember when he was running for president, how I think it was Trump who said something to the effect of, "He doesn't even show up to work. So what the hell is he doing with all that free time or something?" And I remember every time I thought about that particular Trump quote, I could always just picture Rubio like laying on a plane, sleeping, or at home, just going to bed, spend like 18 hours on the pillow. Man, where is this picture? Okay, I'm at the 7th. I'm about to just say screw it. Maybe I'll post it in a separate video. I don't want to have this take up the entire stream's time. Envoy's probably with his ex-wife in divorce court. And VVS is pulling stuff out for the red carpet, getting people pulling out the red carpet everywhere he goes and sign autographs after becoming a YouTube superstar. Let's see, like I said, no one deserves to die that way. I don't care how horrible they are. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Yeah, well, that's my thing, that we, like, people are evil. Just, you look at the U.S. and its history of torture, and you know that we're not the good guys. They try to, whitewash history to seem like. So I hope I answered Mark's question regarding the whereabouts of of one of my chat's most recurring members and one of the most famous, the most up and coming YouTubers. Uh, I mean, I don't. My problem is I don't like discussing that chick stuff with other people. And if it's a stream on my page, I don't, because I don't know what the person is going to say. I'm a little less. I'm a little reluctant to do that as well, because you can't edit that or make it to where the person doesn't, say something that maybe violates the guidelines. Maybe I have something monetized and they play some copyright Rihanna song or something. I don't know. But I'll just, it's one of those things where I lean more toward not doing it than doing it. So I could still be persuaded, but you know. Spondora says, "Well, if you were right about such a picture being shared, then I condemn it unless it was done in a manner critical." No, no, no. It was like a warning photo to Maduro. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Where did this thing go? It's funny, every time you need the picture or something, you can't find it. But then if you just type in Rubio Venezuela tweets, see that's how you know it wasn't friendly. They put up the somebody on one of the websites has a picture of it, a picture of the picture. Okay, there we go. That'd be funny if you could actually share in the chat the. So there's an article with it, with that photo. You just scroll down and look at it. I was actually pretty close. It was like February the 23rd or 24th that he posted that. Ryan says the control that Israel has over our government is always written off as anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, but there is a lot of truth to it. Cynthia McHenry was driven from office for talking about it. Oh yeah, that's why I said that if I was ever elected to the House, I would only have one term, because I would call out how we bootlick for Israel and Saudi Arabia so much they would primary me in 5 seconds. In just the first time I ran for re-election, and I wouldn't be mad because I would have gotten out what I wanted to say. So you want to talk about Fox giving AOC too much coverage? They would cover me every night. It's like Congressman is making anti-Semitic claims about Israel, and then they play the video. It's like me saying, well, AIPAC does influence politicians, so this idea that the Israeli government has no control over the U.S. at all and could never is not exactly true. Like that would be the comment that makes them say I'm anti-Semitic. Not saying the Jews are evil or any actual thing about that religious or ethnic group. No, just talking about the government. That's lovely. My God, they find ways to twist stuff so much, and then you play the clip, and it's like a completely different thing. They're talking like you guys ask yourself, did we even watch the same clip? Are you thinking about somebody else? All right, so it looks like people are talked out. Lowe came in here to give his piece, and then he disappeared. Ryan says we need people to run for office. At the very least, it would wake more people up. Well, like I said, the biggest problems for me are the fact of just how much it costs, and that there's too few people who I think pay it. Like, okay, if you have presidential election, you have supporters probably scattered across all 50 states, right? But you can't get that many people from, let's say, Iowa to donate to someone's campaign for congressman in California. So it's one of those things where it's just sort of that's the biggest issue, the cash. Well, it says I'm eating. He's probably having some kugel. That'd be really funny if Lode critiqued the Israeli government and then was Jewish himself. Like I kept saying that the only way you're ever going to get people to not be called anti-Semitic is if you have Jews critique the Israeli government. And it's sad that you have to be part of this religious group to have a force field from people dismissing you on the basis of some hatred of a religion. But that's how it is. Ultimate goal in life. um I really do like the idea of attempting to influence the political scene. I probably would say it's more important to me than a lot of other stuff because there's a lot of issues where the government can be helpful, and it's kind of thanks to people who have accepted certain types of candidates that it's not helpful that much. But also it can be destructive, as you're seeing overseas, and because we have a media that is bought out to literally not discuss these stories, a lot of people end up not knowing about it. The looniest of the SJW left. Ooh, I don't know who you're talking. I hope you're not talking about me. And I get great pleasure from pissing them off because of their censorship stance. Oh, I already told you. I think Alex Jones shouldn't have been the platform. So I have no censorship position. At least not one that is in keeping with getting rid of people that say something I don't like. No, I didn't. Let me see. Well, not a fan, but because he pisses me off. So it's not skin off my back. I don't think it's like, okay, so there's the Trump is you know what, but pretty refreshed to me because he pisses off. Oh, okay, yeah, now I see it. It's like, what did I do? Like he sat there, agreeing with me, going like this, and then all of a sudden I'm the looniest of the left. Or it's like, what did I do? Like, hey, I gave him credit. I'm like, okay. And Spandora was like two different people. So yeah, I saw the three parts to that. So it looks like no one in here supports regime change, which is very refreshing because, like I said before, this isn't about opposing Trump. This isn't about opposing whoever the hell. It's about opposing a policy that is not beneficial to the people. If you're going to have regime change or getting rid of Maduro, it needs to come from people in Venezuela. Just like if you're going to get rid of Trump, if you're going to get rid of Hillary, if you're going to get rid of whoever the hell in the U.S., it needs to come from Americans. So if anyone doesn't like that position, that the people who live there should be the ones that are causing regime change. At least Lode says, I think you'd have to be a very bloodthirsty individual to support another regime. Yeah, well, there are people who are backing it, but like I said, if they have a problem with us not backing it, they can do this.
Suck a dick. Go fuck yourself. Fuck your mama. Fuck your daddy. Fuck your whole generation. Go jump off a bridge. Go buy you a ticket. Fly to Japan and lick that old bitch's pussy. If it means that much to you, faggot. Shut the fuck up. No one cares.
Thank you for watching. We'll probably do a stream tomorrow if I'm not, preoccupied by the circumstances of life. I'm glad Lode enjoyed the I guess not as surprising ending as the last time. But have a good day.